Hello everybody, welcome back to another video here on my channel. In today's video, we are going over all the books that I read in the month of October, all the books that I did get to, which is my entire TBR to a point. One book in particular from my TBR I did start, but I have not finished that book. I will finish it in the month of November. I will kind of talk about it a little bit, but I'm not going to go into my TBR. We're just going to go straight into the wrap up and all of the books that I did accomplish. And I had a amazing reading month. If I almost finished the book that I started in the month of October, I would have had the highest number of books completed in a single month this year. I did have the highest amount of pages ever read in a month for this year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into my October wrap up. This first book I did start in the month of September, actually on the 28th. I feel like I read majority of it in September, but I just could not finish it. I tried hard. I just couldn't finish it. I did happen to finish it on the 1st of October. It is Clockwork Prince, the second book in the Infernal Devices series. I'm okay with this book. It's definitely not my favorite, and I've been hoping that maybe the rest of the series in her world, her universe, will get better if I choose to actually go into it. Right now, even though I rated the first book, I think 4 stars, I just don't think that this series is really good, or potentially her world. This is my only series, or only 2 books technically, the first book and then this book, is the only ones that I've ever really read from her, but I'm not really enjoying them as much as I thought I would. And I've heard so many people hype and talk about that series, that universe, almost like Harry Potter, where it's like their comfort series, or they read it every year, or they read a book from her series since she keeps coming out with books. And me in particular, I'm like, if I just read these 3, accomplished these 3, and then got rid of the series, I would be okay potentially never getting into her universe again. And I don't know if maybe this is like the worst series in that universe, like the most boring. I'm a little bit discouraged of buying more books to see if the rest of her series is decent, or if I would like that one better, and maybe it's just like her beginning ones I'm not gonna enjoy. But I like the time period. I don't mind the London. I like some of the things that happen. I just, for some reason, I just don't feel that interested or invested into this world or this series or these characters or anything about this whole book. And I really don't like that. I just feel like every time I pick up the next book in the series, I'm wishing the day that I start it that I will be finishing it as soon as possible, or I have to use an audiobook to help me get through it. I did rate this book 3.5 stars. It was okay. I'm hoping maybe the last one will be better. I think there were some events in here that I really enjoyed, but I just don't remember much about this book, in all honesty, and I really kind of hate that. The next book, however, I started on the 2nd of October and ended on the 9th of October. We have actually Stephenie Meyer's The Host. This book in particular was one of those that when I first started it, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it. However, by the end of this book, I absolutely loved this. This being a sci-fi and almost like in a way a dystopian, because you're in our world, or at the time, our main character, who is kind of like a soul who attaches or gets put into a certain body. She's still here in Earth. I think she's actually in Los Angeles or Colorado, and then she drives to California, or she's from California and drives to Colorado. But she's on this world, and there are other planets, other worlds that she has been to. But this one in particular, she finds a certain host. This host, who is supposed to kind of like give up and die, she actually stays with our main character. I think the host name is Melanie, and our main character kind of is called Wanda, because she's a wanderer. And she's supposed to die, but instead that host doesn't die or disappear. So she's sitting there, and she kind of has her own thoughts along with Wanda, trying to control her or just be in her body. And it's really unique to see not so much the world, but the dynamic between them, and then the characters, how exactly Stephenie Meyer wrote about the souls and how they get put into bodies. And that whole concept I thought was so interesting. There is a little bit of romance in a way, and like a subplot of romance. You kind of get like a romance between our host and the actual person that she was dating, and then you have a little bit of a relationship between Wanda and potentially somebody else. But at the same time, you have this massive friend group that's almost like a family. And in the beginning of the book, they hate Wanda. A lot of people hate her because of what technically the souls do, how they kind of take over. They don't like a lot of things. There's not really that many humans left. So when she finds them, they kind of capture her, and they're skeptical of her because they believe that Melanie is not alive. And then you get to the end of the book, and it's like a whole different dynamic. And I thought the ending was really good. I loved following our main character. I loved, honestly, just like the entire book. It just was something that I wasn't expecting. I didn't know what to expect jumping into it, and I've never seen the show or the movie, whichever they have. And I just felt like this book in particular kind of changed my opinion. It just came out of left field in the best of way. It surprised surprised me. And because of that, I did rate it 3.5 stars. It is the same rating that I rated Clockwork Prince, which sounds terrible, but my 3 stars are usually really good. And this one wasn't necessarily a 4 star. I think there were some parts that were kind of slow for me, or I just wasn't invested in the beginning and a little bit towards the middle. But by the end of it, I think the ending for sure would be like a 4.5, but the rest of it would be like a 3 star. That is the main reason why I rated it 3.5 stars. But honestly, I do recommend this. I think this is better than her Twilight series, and it's just so much more unique, and I don't really hear anybody talk about it. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody talk about it, to be honest, but I did find this, I think, for $2. Maybe like the first year we were stationed out in Las Vegas, and I finally just now got around to it about 3 years late. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a while that it's sat on my shelf, but at least I finally tackled it. It was a very big accomplishment. And then, even though I was reading technically another book, we hopped into a second book at the same time. I usually don't listen or read 2 books at once, but I listened to this, probably 75% of it, on audiobook because I was mowing our front yard and then our backyard, and it takes about 2 days to mow unless you have the entire day to mow. And I did start this book on the 14th and finished it on the 18th. It is Nicholas Sparks' The Last Song. The main reason besides mowing that I did choose to start this and listen to an audiobook instead of just reading is because I've seen the movie a couple times. I loved the movie and I felt like I kind of spoiled the book a little bit. I know movie adaptations are not always just like the book, but in his books and movie adaptations, I feel like they're very similar. And that is still, again, the case with this book in particular. I really enjoyed this book, to be honest. I rated this one 5 stars. This was my only 5 star of the month. I just thought it was like beautifully written in a way. His story was just so very unique, but also it's a little bit different. It's a classic Nicholas Sparks book. I'm sure you guys know what I mean when I talk about that. It's one of those books that he writes that gives you a little bit of like, you have a friendship or a relationship, but you also have heartbreak and you have maybe like a character growth in a way. And this book in particular, you're following this teenage daughter. I think she's 18 or just turned 18. Her and her brother are staying with her father for the summer in, I think it has to be one of the Carolinas, because North Carolina probably, because Nicholas Sparks usually writes about North Carolina. And while they're there, Ronnie and her father, they don't really get along too well. They're not necessarily butting heads, but at the same time, she just doesn't want to talk to him. So she's kind of staying out, trying to find a friend group. She does find a friend group, but they're not the best of friends or the best of people to be around with. And she has already had a slight prior to her, and it was something that she did just because she wanted kind of like the thrill of doing it. There was no real reason why she did it, and then she ended up getting picked up by the cops. That was back when she lived with her mom before she came to visit. While she was there, she hung out with some questionable friends, let's just say. So she's navigating this friendship or friend group because some of them are not good. She doesn't like one of them in particular, and that person is also dating her actual friend. Because of him, there's a situation that she gets put into, and that friend or friend of hers decides to kind of turn around on her, and then some cops get involved. And honestly, that's our turning point. That's where Ronnie kind of realizes how to mature, and I feel like she did take the situation really maturely. And at the same time, there's some things going on with her father and some sea turtles, and also she's kind of finding a little relationship on her own with a very wealthy boy. And his family, even though they are wealthy, his mother is kind of like not really accepting Ronnie into the family, especially with him going away for college. So there's a little bit of that dynamic. And then of course there is a very subplot of she grew up with her father playing the piano. They wrote songs together, played the piano together, and then she kind of had like a falling out with her father. She stopped touching the piano. She didn't want to hear it. She basically told him never to play it again. And then there's something very, like, I'm gonna say traumatic for her that happens, and she comes around to the piano again, and she falls in love with the piano again. And that's just like a subplot, and I don't know, the whole entire story I absolutely loved. It was 5 stars. Like I said, it's a classic Nicholas Sparks book, and I highly recommend this one as well. This is probably in my top 3 of my favorite books that I have from him. I think I have like 20 books from him, but definitely it's in my top 5. And next, technically on the 9th, but I finished this on the 21st, we have the book that I was reading when I decided to pick up The Last Song. There was no audiobook for this. There is no digital copy that I've ever found, and that is one reason why when I was mowing, I picked up one that I could listen to. It is my 1949 edition of The White Witch Doctor. I also really enjoyed this book. I felt like the overall story of our main character going over to Africa to be more of a missionary. She went over there to help people as a nurse, and she grew to be a very well respected nurse and medical person, but also a hunter and just like a friend and a part of their village. And the overall story from start to finish was so good. It was so unique in its own way because it's also one that isn't necessarily popular, or it's definitely not heard of, I feel like. And I just happened to have this and a really nice addition. I love the friendships that were made. There was 2 different ones. One of the male characters did try to make it more than just a friendship, but more of like a convenience, and she did not go through with that. But at the same time, it was one of those that they were always super close together. And I don't know, there were a lot of things that you learned in this book, and there are a lot of things that, like, story-wise, that were, I'll just say, interesting. There was one story in particular that was a little disturbing, but I just thought that this whole story was very interesting. Just reading about it, reading about her experience in the Congo, and also some people that she stumbled across, some people she wrote about, some stories that she heard, some events or some things that she had to either eat or potentially do to fix somebody or to help somebody, like medically wise. Overall, I really enjoyed it, and I rated it 4 stars. If you can find a copy of this book, I would recommend reading it, especially if you're not a person who gets offended, because this is from 1949, and obviously when you go overseas, and especially to Africa, there are some things that are said that I'm sure a lot of people get offended about, but that was what it was back then. And also there is a movie. I have not seen that just yet, but I did stumble across that, and I'm not sure if it's free, if I can find it. Like, I don't know what streaming service it's on, but I did find that there is a movie, so I might end up watching that one of these days, but I just haven't got to it. But 4 stars. And then on the 21st and ending on the 25th, we hopped into a book that I partially read before. I did find that out while doing a reading vlog. It is actually Ender's Game. This book was a pretty decent book. I'd say for 75%, the very beginning to 75%. I didn't enjoy the last maybe 25%. It wasn't that it was bad, it just didn't pique my interest as much. I was almost a little bit bored, but I did like the twist that did happen in the last 25%. It's something that kind of sets up for the next book, and I feel like the next book in the series, as long as we continue with this story, I think it's going to be pretty good. I do want to go on to the next book in the series and maybe try to finish this entire series. We have our main character, Ender, who is actually 6 years old when we start this book. I kind of struggled a little bit with his age because at first I thought he was like 16. I thought it was young adult, but more high school age. Something's just really immature about our character, and then I realized, oh, he's 6 years old. That kind of explains it. So we are following him, I think from like 6 to 10 or 6 to 12. He ages up, he goes to this military school, this battle school, and he's learning at this academy how to basically fight in a war, but it's also in space. And it's completely unique. He's playing games, but there's a twist with those games. There's a twist with his whole training, and he also advances very quickly. The bottom, being 6 years old, to very quickly growing up and always being like the youngest in each group because he is just so smart, and they just keep pushing him to the top to be a lieutenant, to be a colonel, or just to be a commander in general. So I really enjoyed this book. I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more when I was in middle school, maybe late elementary school. However, I'm not mad that I finally got to it. I'm not mad that I read it in my 20s, basically. I definitely think the younger me would have loved it a lot more. It would have been like 5 stars. I only rated it 4 stars, which I'm not saying that's bad. However, I was just kind of hoping for a little bit more. I think if it would have continued the way that the beginning was, it maybe would have been a little higher. I'm not mad at anything in this book. Overall, I think it was a very good introduction book, and I'm excited to see what turn the second book takes, but I have no clue when I'm gonna hop into the next book in this series. And then technically, we have the final book that I actually accomplished in the month of October. I started this book on the 27th and read it all the way until the 30th, and it's probably my most, not necessarily disappointing read of the month, but more of one that I just didn't know how I felt, didn't know how to rate it. It is The Clockwork Prince. This is book 1 in a complete trilogy, and it's one of those that I just didn't have a feeling one way or another. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really like it. Like, it wasn't my favorite, but I didn't hate it. I did just end up rating it 3 stars. I thought a lot about it, and then when I was thinking about rating it 2 stars, I just thought it was kind of disrespectful because it wasn't a 2-star book. I didn't enjoy it, but it was a very bottom of the barrel 3-star book in my opinion. The introduction to the world was okay. It wasn't my favorite. I think the prologue was really good, and I think the last maybe 20% of the book was really, really good. It's definitely gonna set up really nice for the second book. The majority of this book I just didn't care about. I was told when I posted about this book on Fable that this is actually like a introduction to the world, kind of get a basis for how everything was set up, and then book 2 and book 3 gets so much better. So I do have more hope for book 2. However, I am just a little bit disappointed in book 1. It wasn't bad. It's just one of those that I just didn't really have a feeling towards it, if that makes sense. And there were some things about this book that I did enjoy. There were some twists that I enjoyed. There were some things that I called or I seen. I don't know, unless if it's just this series or this book in particular, if I ever read another fantasy book that has like fairies or goblins, random things like that, I don't know if I'm gonna really enjoy it. I have read goblins in Harry Potter, but otherwise I've never read this side to fantasy. I think like dragons are the most fake things that I've ever read about, and most of the fantasies I read are pretty much, they could have happened in the past or they can happen in the future, or they're like sci-fi type. So this one was a introduction to this type of world, and I'm not saying I hated it, but I don't think it's for me unless it's just this book and maybe the second book gets better, or maybe I find a different series that still talks about fairies, and I actually enjoy that world. But I'm a little sad I ended off the month on this book, but I'm not too disappointed, even though I am a little disappointed. I hope that makes sense. And then I do want to just throw this book in here just a little bit because this was the final book on my TBR for the month of October. It is Cloud Cuckoo Land, or Cuckoo Land as some people have said. And I did start it. However, I started it on the 30th, read 100 pages or just under 100. I'm on 108. And on Halloween, I think I read like 4 pages. I didn't really get too far into it, but I am so excited about this book. This book has been so interesting and I've been so intrigued to read about all the characters. So if you are curious about this book, stay tuned, subscribe to my channel because it will definitely be in next month's wrap up. And I'm hoping to finish this in the next like 4 or 5 days. I don't know, however long it takes me to get 500 something pages through this book. I did just want to talk about it because it was on my TBR, but I did not finish it, sadly. These are all the books that I tackled in the month of October. And now let's get into my monthly statistics. I want to start with the real reason that for the month of October, I used a number generator to choose books for my 25 and 25 list. At the end of last month, we were sitting with only 14 out of 25 books completed from my 25 and 25 list. I do believe that was around 56% completed. Sitting here today because of my October TBR and all the books that I accomplished, we are sitting at 19 out of 25 books completed, which is around 76%. The books that helped me go from 14 to 19 books accomplished from that list were Ender's Game, The Clockwork Prince, The White Witch Doctor, The Last Song, and finally The Host. Something this year that I've been trying to kind of tackle was my physical TBR. I wanted to be around 65 to 60 books. I feel like more 65 left on my physical TBR. At the end of last month, I only had 73, so it was more realistic to getting down towards that goal. I'm not saying it's not realistic because we still have 2 months left. Because it was my birthday and I bought about 9 books and added some books to my TBR. And after reading only 6 books this month, I am sitting at 77 books on my physical TBR. I only need to read about 10 to 12 books to get closer to, or to actually tackle that goal of being around 65 books on my physical TBR. However, at least the books that are sitting there are books that I definitely want to get to next year. And I think next year, unless if I tackle a lot more, I don't think I'm really going to go out and buy a lot of books for my birthday. I think I'm going to calm down, or I'm not going to buy books throughout the year. I haven't figured out which one I want to do, but that is one of my goals. It's either going to be not buying books throughout the year or not going birthday shopping for books. I just haven't decided which one I'd rather cut out more. With that being said though, in total for this year, I have accomplished 43 books, which isn't the most I've ever done in a year. I think like 65 was. However, last year I only got to maybe 30. So I'm a good sweet spot in between. I've accomplished my first book goal at 30, but I will not get to my second book goal at 65, which is okay. Mystery is still my top genre with 8 books, and sci-fi is still in second place. However, I think last month it was like 5 books. We have now officially 7 books in that genre. All in all, for the month of October, I accomplished 6 books, which was 2,479 pages in total, and I only had 1 5-star read. But of course, The Last Song, being my only 5-star, was my favorite book in the month of October. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. If you are curious, I should have the reading vlog that had some of these books actually in that video posted right before this one. I think I posted it on a Wednesday if I have everything planned out correctly, and then this video of course is on a Sunday. So the video prior to this should be that reading vlog. Next month I am planning to do another reading vlog. It's going to be a little bit different from this month. However, I am really excited about that. So if you're curious, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, be a part of my YouTube community, and keep in touch with any future reading vlogs and or reading related videos, any other videos I have on my channel. I'm already starting to try and plan out some videos to be scheduled for the month of December for around Bookmas. I don't know if I'm going to be trying to post twice a week or maybe even post 3 times a week, but I do have a few ideas, few video ideas that I definitely want to try and tackle and be able to upload and post for Bookmas, and I'm so excited about those. So I hope you guys will maybe keep in touch with me. All in all, I hope to see you in another video here on my channel, and as always, God bless.